What if everything you've been told about spiritual awakening is backwards? What if that moment of enlightenment you're waiting for already passed you by? Here's the uncomfortable truth. While you're searching for some dramatic spiritual breakthrough, the real awakening is happening so quietly you might miss it entirely. Carl Jung understood something most spiritual teachers won't tell you. Awakening isn't about gaining something new. It's about slowly, almost imperceptibly quitting things that no longer serve you. Think about it. When did you last desperately need someone's approval? Can you even remember the exact moment you stopped caring what strangers think of you? Of course not, because real transformation doesn't announce itself with fireworks and mystical visions. Jung called this process individuation, but here's what he really meant. You don't decide to change. You simply notice you already have. Like a snake shedding its skin, the old patterns just fall away. So ask yourself, what if your spiritual awakening isn't some future event you're moving toward, but a gradual process of letting go that's been happening all along? What if the very fact that you're questioning these things means you're already deeper in the process than you realize? The question isn't whether you're awakening. The question is, what are you quietly quitting right now? Have you ever noticed how your body physically rejects certain behaviors now? That uncomfortable feeling when you catch yourself trying to please someone who doesn't even matter to you? Your nervous system is developing what I call an approval allergy. It's not that you consciously decided to stop seeking validation. Your body simply started rejecting it like a toxin. Jung observed this phenomenon in his patients, the gradual development of what he termed inner authority. But here's what's fascinating. This process follows a predictable pattern. First, you stop caring what strangers think, then acquaintances, then friends, and finally, the hardest one, family members whose approval once felt like oxygen. Can you feel it happening? That subtle shift where someone's disapproval used to send you spiraling, but now it just bounces off? You didn't train for this. You didn't practice affirmations or read self-help books. Your psyche simply evolved past the need. Think about the last time you genuinely worried about impressing someone. How long ago was it? A month? A year? The fact that you have to think about it proves my point. Your soul is quietly firing you from the exhausting job of being everyone else's version of perfect. And the strangest part? You probably didn't even notice when you handed in your resignation. What approval are you discovering you no longer need? Here's a question that might sting. Are you addicted to being the spiritual one in your circle? Jung warned about something he called spiritual inflation, that intoxicating feeling of being chosen, enlightened, or somehow above the ordinary human experience. Sound familiar? But here's what's really happening as you awaken. You're slowly quitting the need to perform your spirituality. That urge to drop wisdom bombs in conversations? Fading. The compulsion to mention your meditation practice? Disappearing? The subtle superiority when others seem less conscious? Dissolving. This is where most people get confused. They think losing the need to be special means becoming ordinary. But Jung understood the paradox. True individuation happens when you become utterly unique, without needing anyone to notice. If this resonates with you, hit that like button. Because recognizing this pattern means you're already in the process of authentic transformation. And subscribe to join others who are navigating this same quiet revolution. The most spiritually mature people you'll ever meet won't tell you how spiritual they are. They've quit performing enlightenment and started embodying it. They've discovered something profound. Your uniqueness doesn't need an audience. Can you feel yourself caring less about being seen as wise? That's not spiritual regression. That's spiritual maturation. What spiritual performance are you ready to retire? When was the last time you felt pressure to be positive when you were actually struggling? Here's what nobody tells you about spiritual awakening. Truly conscious people aren't perpetually blissful. They're perpetually real. And there's a massive difference. You're slowly quitting the exhausting performance of spiritual happiness. That forced smile when someone asks how your meditation practice is going? That automatic "I'm blessed" response when you're actually having a terrible day? Your authentic self is rejecting these scripts. Jung understood that spiritual maturity isn't about transcending your humanity. It's about fully embodying it. The shadow, the light, the messy middle ground where most of life actually happens. Notice how you're becoming less tolerant of spiritual bypassing, both in yourself and others. When someone tries to love and light their way out of genuine pain, something in you cringes now. That's your wisdom recognizing the difference between spiritual embodiment and spiritual avoidance. The awakened person doesn't escape the human experience. They dive deeper into it with consciousness. They cry when they're sad, feel anger when boundaries are crossed, and experience joy without apologizing for previous sorrow. Your emotional authenticity isn't a spiritual failure. It's a spiritual achievement. What emotional truth are you finally allowing yourself to feel? What if the smartest thing you could say right now is, "I don't know"? Your mind is slowly quitting its addiction to having all the answers. That compulsive need to understand, categorize, and control every spiritual experience. It's losing its grip on you. Jung spoke of the cloud of unknowing, that mystical space where truth is too alive, too dynamic to be captured by concepts. And you're discovering this isn't a philosophical idea, it's a lived reality. Notice how you're becoming more comfortable with paradoxes, how you can hold two opposing truths simultaneously without your brain short-circuiting, how questions have become more interesting than answers. This isn't intellectual laziness, it's spiritual sophistication. The awakening mind learns to dance with uncertainty instead of wrestling it to the ground. Remember when you used to have strong opinions about everything? When every spiritual book promised to unlock the secret? Now you're discovering that the deepest truths can't be possessed, only experienced, moment by moment. Your ego is slowly retiring from its job as chief explainer of reality. And in that surrender, something far more intelligent emerges. The wisdom that knows without needing to know. What certainty are you discovering you no longer need to cling to? When did you stop making everyone else responsible for your inner state? You're quietly quitting the victim-perpetrator narrative that once defined your relationships. That automatic reflex to blame others for your triggers, your reactions, your emotional weather. It's slowly dissolving. Jung understood something radical. Taking responsibility for your experience isn't about accepting abuse or dismissing real harm. It's about reclaiming your creative power over your inner world. Notice how you're becoming curious about your own participation in recurring patterns. Instead of asking, "Why do they always do this to me?" you're asking, "What in me keeps attracting this dynamic?" This shift is subtle but revolutionary. You're not becoming a doormat, you're becoming sovereign. You're discovering that blame is just another form of giving your power away. The awakening person realizes that even in genuinely difficult situations, they have choice over their response. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've stopped outsourcing their emotional authority. Your triggers are becoming teachers instead of tormentors. Your reactions are becoming information instead of evidence of others' wrongdoing. This doesn't mean you tolerate everything. It means you respond from empowerment rather than victimhood. What blame story are you ready to release? Are you using meditation to avoid your humanity? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You're slowly quitting the spiritual escape routes that once felt so enlightened. That tendency to float above your emotions instead of feeling them. Your psyche is calling you back down to earth. Jung warned against this, using spiritual practices to avoid the messy, uncomfortable, gloriously human parts of existence. You're discovering that true awakening isn't about transcending your humanity. It's about bringing consciousness into every corner of it. Notice how your meditation practice is changing. Instead of using it to bypass difficult emotions, you're using it to be present with them. Instead of seeking blissful states, you're cultivating the capacity to be with what is. If you're recognizing this pattern in yourself, smash that like button. Because this awareness means you're moving from spiritual adolescence to spiritual maturity. And subscribe to continue this journey with others who are choosing embodiment over escapism. The most profound spiritual work happens not on the meditation cushion, but in the kitchen argument with your partner. Not in the ashram, but in the grocery store line when you're triggered by the slow cashier. You're learning to live where heaven meets earth, fully spiritual and fully human. What spiritual bypass are you ready to abandon? What if your spiritual journey was never meant to separate you from others, but to connect you more deeply? You're slowly quitting the loneliest lie of awakening. That consciousness means isolation. That subtle spiritual superiority that whispered, "They just don't understand," is finally losing its voice. Jung knew that true individuation leads not to separation, but to authentic communion. You're discovering that the more genuinely yourself you become, the more you can truly meet others where they are. Notice how you're attracting different people now, not because you're performing spirituality, but because you've stopped performing altogether. Real recognizes real and authentic souls find each other in the most unexpected places. The awakening person doesn't need everyone to be on their level. They meet people on theirs. They've quit the exhausting job of being the most conscious person in the room and started the beautiful work of being the most present. You've made it to the end of this journey, which tells me something profound about you. You're ready for real transformation, not just spiritual entertainment. Drop a word in the comments that represents what you're ready to quit in your own awakening journey. Your willingness to look this deeply is already changing you. The path continues, but now you're walking it as yourself, completely human, completely awake, completely connected. What authentic connection is waiting for you on the other side of these releases?